Hey guys, C Squared here, and I've got my good friend Bill Hart back for another interview. And it's been about a year since we've talked to Bill, so we want to catch up and find out what's been going on with him. And he's got a new look, very important. And there's just been a lot of different things, some traveling, a lot of playing. So why don't you just fill us in on some of the things that have been happening, Bill?
Okay, well, since last year, there's really been a big change career-wise. Not giving up on music is one of them. you know, basically, I just did a European tour for a couple months and played with some musicians over there doing my music. So I just sent them the charts and the, you know, MP3s, and it was a totally different experience playing in Europe than it is here, as far as the music being accepted over there, it was, very positive experience.
Right. I always hear that.
Yeah. I've heard it for years, and I kind of know that the whole genre of Hendrix and everybody kind of went over there, and when they came back, they kind of had a career.
Right. And a lot of jazz musicians.
A lot of jazz musicians, yeah, especially the jazz musicians, Sarah Vaughan, Parker, and all those
Right.
great players. So it was great, to really experience it myself. So
Right.
while I was over there and traveling, of course, being a musician, full time, you've always got that thinking going on, for better or for worse. So I was constantly analyzing what the difference was. Um, Culturally, it's definitely different.
Right.
Things are thousands of years old over there, where and just kind of the whole vibe.
We build something here and we get rid of it as soon as it's 20 years old.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember Duncan, one of our students, and he said his house was 400 years old.
Uh-huh.
And they were going to sell it, and I was like, wow, that's like twice as old as our country.
Right. Right.
So yeah. So it was a totally different vibe playing over there. Musicians were great.
So when you were, like, which countries, can you just kind of recap quickly which countries you spent some time in?
Yeah. The first country I went to was Italy.
Mm-hmm.
I played in Bologna and Rome, and I had a few days down, so I went ahead and took a plane to Sicily for a couple days just to get out of the what would you call it? The city vibe, I guess, the metropolitan
Right.
commercial area, and try to see what the Italians really
Yeah.
live like. And did that for a couple days. That was a great experience. And then from there, I took a train up to Germany. Played in Stuttgart, in a few places there, and then got on a train and went to Paris. And I was in Paris for a week. A lot of great jazz clubs there too. And then from there, I went back to Italy for a couple days, and then flew to London, and was in London, Southampton, and Brighton. And they all had their own kind of little vibe of acceptance with American music.
Right. So did you find much difference between, say, England and continental Europe?
Yes. Yeah. Now that's an interesting thing, because the UK is just separating from the Union. So
Right.
there was some, I guess you could say, controversy when I was flying from Italy and tried to do something with the duty-free stuff.
Right.
They wouldn't accept it from the UK, which, typically the last country you leave, coming back to the States, is where you do all your duty-free stuff, except they would do all of Europe, but they wouldn't do
Right.
England. I had to go to England to do that.
Yeah. So how about like any difference, do you think, in their perspective, like for you as a North American, a sort of transcontinental North American, being Canadian and from the United States now? How did you feel? Did you notice anything different about how they maybe view jazz and fusion oriented music in, say, England?
Yeah. It's very. I think the difference is, from what I saw. I mean, there are great players over there, but it seemed like the majority of the great jazz players had a little bit of a kind of a book theory about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was almost like it wasn't played like a blues where you just kind of
Right.
relax
Right.
and I think that's, I don't know, I guess the term could be the laziness about playing it. You know, just being comfortable and
Mm-hmm.
doing what you're doing, opposed to
Right.
being book oriented. Like
Yeah, maybe more intuitive.
yeah, like the Japanese are dead on the notes and they just,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Very precise.
very precise.
Yeah. In terms of maybe like continental Europe as compared to uh, your experience with UK, what would you say that they are? They're similar in that respect, or are they different?
They're a little bit different because the UK, I mean, they definitely accept the jazz. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
great jazz places, especially in London. Um, but the European countries, even in Holland, uh, Italy, France, Germany, tend to appreciate the American jazz.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and not that the UK doesn't,
Right.
but you know, there's such a great history of players that have come out of the
Sure.
UK that they kind of still hold on to that tradition, and that's part of the reason for them wanting to
Right.
separate.
Right. Yeah, they've got their own
Yeah,
culture.
yeah. They want
So
to kind of hold on to
yeah,
their,
yeah,
and you know,
sure.
being Canadian, you can really see it cross over. I mean, there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things in England that I related to from being a Canadian. You know,
Right. Right. Of course.
yeah. So that would be kind of the difference, I would think. You know,
Mm-hmm. Right.
both accepted,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Probably a little more fertile grounds for art music there than here in general, though. No matter what the difference in perspective is, my guess. Right.
yeah, and that's kind of one of the things I would analyze is I did a photo shoot last week and we were kind of looking for a cool spot.
Mm-hmm.
And after coming back from Europe, it was like in Europe, France or Italy,
Everything's a cool spot.
everything, yeah, just
Yeah.
the street corner, wherever you're at, it's the cool spot. You know,
Right.
it's like, doesn't matter where you go. So I think that kind of bleeds into their culture to where they have a stronger appreciation for,
Mm-hmm.
you know, music
Yeah.
and art in
Right.
general.
As you referred to the architecture, there's sort of a built-in appreciation for substance. I would
Right,
say.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of like in their blood, you know.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
You know, plus I guess the big thing I also noticed that I really liked a lot was when I landed in Italy. I went to Italy and France, Germany, England,
Mm-hmm.
Holland, and basically didn't get in a car the whole time I was there. You know, so
Right.
that was kind of a big thing. You
Yeah.
know, just I mean, I didn't realize that going into it, but you know, obviously trying to see my surroundings,
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting to analyze that and see that, you know, if everybody's walking, then you kind of have that human contact.
Right. Right.
You know, when I got back to the States, I got in a car. It was
Oh,
like
yeah.
I drove for 45 minutes and all I could see was heads
Yeah.
flying by me, you know?
Yeah. You get in a car and you wage war.
Right, yeah, yeah. It's like
Right.
everybody was in a cage, you know, you
Right.
couldn't really see anybody. So it was like, almost like no human contact, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I think
Interesting.
that was important. I mean, I know that we both know Enrico in Italy, and one of the big things he mentioned, he said, America's a great country, but we have no quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not,
Stress.
yeah,
That's
the
our
stress.
quality of life.
Yeah, yeah, and working, you know, your 8-hour days are like 7 to midnight, you know, in
Right.
the morning, and you
Yeah.
know, and then the weekends, and you know, culturally over there, they're like Italy is trying to I guess the prime minister there is trying to have shops close on the weekend,
Hmm.
you know, so they don't have business. So it's kind of like almost forcing them to get out and
Right.
enjoy life, in a
Right.
sense,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Because I know that it could be real easy for life just to fly by, and before
No,
you know
absolutely.
it, it's, you know, you've worked all your life for what?
Right. Right.
You know. So.
Right. So when you came back, did that have you seen like some opportunities open up for going back to Europe and playing some more?
Yes. I've a lot has changed in my career in the last year. You know, as far as, you know, not just the haircut, but just
Right,
in
sure.
general. You know, I I don't know what it is. I just kind of stepped up to the plate and
Mm-hmm.
took a chance on going over there. I got a new back with Blue Canoe Records,
Mm-hmm.
to release another record. And the good thing about that, Jimmy Haslip from Yellow Jackets is now working with Blue Canoe.
Nice.
And I got a great publicist writing for me down in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
who's worked for Guitar World,
Yeah.
all the magazines we grew up with
Right.
since the '70s, and things have been. I've been meeting some real cool people in the jazz world and getting out and playing more, and it's really positive.
So what's the prospects for, like, time wise? When do you think you'll be working on the next album?
Working on it right now,
Okay.
and hopefully going to try to release it in February.
Okay.
From talking to the record label,
Nice.
and kind of taking a little different twist to it. I have a bass player that's a Puerto Rican, and I was watching a documentary on jazz and how it kind of really came together, and it was really an interesting documentary about in the 20s the Americans in New York kind of had the upper structure of music, the horns and the melodies and the harmony,
Mm-hmm.
and then they had an influx of Puerto Ricans that moved into the Bronx
Right.
like by the thousands, and of course they carried their rhythms with them,
Right.
and they ended up mixing with the big bands and the jazz players with their Latin rhythms, and it kind of created this somewhat of a dance music back
Mm-hmm.
then where it was accepted. It's you know reminds me of the Lucille Ball show with Ricky
Right,
Ricardo
right,
and
sure.
Lucille. It's kind of that vibe.
Right,
It was like
right.
the places where everybody could go meet and
Mm-hmm.
socialize, and a lot of interracial things, in that time, and just kind of opened up a new world. I think that's really kind of the birth of it.
Right, right, right. So yeah, sort of a birth of a Latin jazz culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the band I have now for the new record, I wanted to incorporate some of that. So
Right.
the bass player Izzy is just a great. I mean, he's just got it in his blood. It's kind of it's there.
Right.
My percussionist is Asa, and he's got that African Haitian kind of percussion sound.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wayne Vyers on drums, who is just a great all-around American fusion kind of drummer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so mixing that together is my goal in doing that kind of stuff is to not have to write something that's so advanced you have to have a degree to come listen to it.
Right.
That all you would do is criticize it anyway.
Right,
that
right,
kind of thing.
exactly.
It's got to have that dance, not dance, but that pocket.
Yeah, well, that's what everybody relates to.
Yeah, because I mean that crosses all.
Mhm.
It's no matter where you go, if it's got that
Right.
pocket, then it's. And that was the big thing I learned playing in Europe,
Right.
because I had a lot of Europeans come up to me, Italians and Germans, and after our show, they would come up and say, I really wasn't into jazz, but what you're doing I really like.
Mm-hmm.
So that term jazz is kind of like, I don't know, there's a stigmatism to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's because it's such an open. I mean, really, jazz is just the learning of music. It really is. It's
Right.
kind of covers everything. Time signatures, melodies, and
Yeah.
harmony, and rhythms, and it just incorporates everything. So
It's a similar thing to classical music, where if you only know one composer, you don't really know anything about it, because it's
Right.
a giant universe.
yeah,
So yeah, jazz, you can combine anything with it. So and have a legitimate art form. So it's perpetually expanding like the universe.
it is. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it would be like being an artist using one color.
Right.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much involved in it.
Right, and I mean, even one artist's career has had many different versions of jazz. I mean,
Yeah.
take Miles Davis as like one of the perfect examples.
Right,
His
yeah.
career, I mean, his music is radically different through each era.
Yeah, and really started the cool jazz and
Well, he started a lot of it, I
and then
suppose.
started
I mean,
the
he,
fusion
yeah,
thing too.
right,
Really.
right, and was a master of really the golden era of
Yeah,
jazz.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, he did 4 generations of music.
and of course he got to start with bebop masters. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, from what I've learned, being around guys like Mike Stern and stuff,
mm,
and that's really. I mean, if you listen to their music, you don't really think of it as jazz because
mm,
you know he was kind of in the Miles's band because he could play like
right,
Hendrix and play the jazz stuff, But all those guys kind of go back to the, I don't know if you'd say basics, but they go back to jazz,
mm,
for
right,
learning, and that's because that's what it offers.
right,
To me, it just offers everything as far as composition.
right,
You take what you can use for it for whatever,
right.
and we all go through those. Well, at least I did when you're younger and you start learning a lot of stuff about music, and then you get in a top 40 band and you're doing Johnny Be Good and you want to play, melodic minor off the 5 chord. And
Right.
you're laughing and everybody
Oh
else is
yeah.
looking at you like you're crazy,
Right.
So it's, to Mike Stern said something to me that was pretty deep, and we were talking about recording records and just how the industry is, and it's just what we do. We play music. You can't retire from who you are, kind of thing.
Right.
And he was saying, he said, I know so many great cats in New York, and he said, I tell them all the time, why don't you just record a record? You'll learn so much.
Right.
And when he said that, learn so
Absolutely.
much, I kind of looked at it and said, that's really what it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
we're constantly learning, whether it's culturally or musically or
Mm-hmm.
where it fits or how it grows or
Right.
you know um,
Yeah, and I think that you find yourself in these various scenarios. It's almost like you define yourself further by being in more of a variety of circumstances. Mike Stern, for instance, he sounds like Mike Stern through all those different, in all the different contexts that he's
Right.
been in.
Yeah.
Or like I said, Miles Davis, he always sounded like Miles Davis, even though he created a lot of different art forms.
Yeah.
And you're doing the same with your career. You are always Bill Hart, finding Bill Hart in a variety of circumstances, and maybe just further defining who Bill Hart is by variety, really.
Yeah.
But yet you sound like you, no matter what you do, which is
That,
like I
that's a
think
good.
this
Yeah.
is the ultimate thing. I think for a
Yeah.
musician is because we're trying to self-express. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
expressing someone else isn't doing you any good at all as
Right.
an artist.
Exactly.
Not gratifying anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that's a really it's a really cool thing to hear that you're going into this new a new chapter.
Yeah. I'm
It's
real
exciting.
excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. It's a in the music, being an artist in the music industry, as you know, constantly persevering.
Right.
You just keep going.
Right.
And that's what the Europeans are doing too. They're kind of in the same boat that we are. I mean, it's not like it's a gold mine, but we just keep going. That's kind of what we do.
The labor of love.
Yeah.
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 So, looking at your like what's coming up in the way of gigs, are you planning to start to implement this a little bit more Latin inspired version of the band in live settings soon?
Yes. Well, we've already done it with, I've got 6 records out, and with the material that we play off of those records, we've already kind of incorporated that.
So filtering some of your previous material through a bit of a new perspective.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And also at the same time working on a new record.
Right.
So as far as playing gigs right now, we're really looking at early spring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to do a whole lot of them right now because
Right.
I'm kind of on a deadline. That's, writing is, so time consuming and,
Right.
and painstaking,
Painful.
painful. Yeah. Yeah. So, but the end result, you just keep going and
Right. Yeah, it's something that I for one will be looking forward to.
oh, thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So anything else on the horizon that's of note?
Well, jazz guitar, today is going to be launching their magazine in December. And they're going to have a couple of different genres as far as writers for it. And I'm going to be one of the writers doing the, I guess you could say, modern jazz crossover, where you have guys using tellies and strats and distortion pedals and wearing Pink Floyd shirts and that kind of thing. And then they'll have kind of the old school bebop, L5 sound. So that's exciting for me, is to be able to write for that magazine and kind of incorporate some of the things that are going on today.
Nice.
Because I think a lot of us, at least for me, when I was growing up, I was really a rocker. I was really into the Zeppelin and Floyd. Yeah, and then when there was guys that I heard that Jean-Luc Ponty and Jeff Beck were probably the two that I went, wow, I like this. And, and Jimmy Page, knowing that he was kind of into the jazz thing for a study, I kind of got into it, and it was like a big giant universe,
Right.
I'm just a little speck in this, endless universe of music, which is great.
Yeah, that's exciting to be a part of something, to realize that you're a part of something much bigger.
Right, yeah. And Pat Metheny, I heard him say one time that, guitar is really kind of a new instrument. It's really hasn't been around that long.
Right.
And there's so much more to explore.
It's certainly not taken seriously for very long.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And electric guitar is extraordinarily young.
Yeah. And with modern technology, the stuff that's, you can download apps and put them on your pedal from your iPhone, it's just...
Right, yeah. Beaming in.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see where the future will be.
Interesting times, no doubt.
Yeah, it's a good time to be alive,
Right.
I think.
Thanks for joining us today and having this fun conversation, catching up with my good friend Bill Hart here. Check out Bill's music, check out his website, and your website is?
BillHartmusic.com.
BillHartmusic.com. Make sure you stop in and check that out. If you want to ask Bill some questions, I'm sure there's some way to contact you on there.
It's absolutely on the website, and I'm wide open to any questions in music.
All right. Well, again, I appreciate it, Bill. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Carl.
It's just been great catching up with you as always, and I look forward to hearing all this new material that you're working on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am going to give you an example of what I have in my solo jazz guitar book. Basically, it's kind of the modern guitar today, but it can be used in any style of music, whether it's jazz, funk, or rock. And what that's going to be is we're going to talk about just a dominant chord, because you can pretty much find that in any style of music. That dominant chord is going to be the root, third, and flat 7. Okay, and the scale that goes over that is a C mixolydian mode, which is... Okay, what that means is it's just the right notes that work. You don't have to get caught up in modal stuff, but that's all the right notes that work. And what I like to do is apply that to the chord. I have students in the past that have asked me, how are they getting all these other chords on the neck when it's just one tonality? And basically this is what it is. It's a C7. So those are the main notes that create the harmony of a C7 chord. And then I'm going to put the top note of the scale on top of the chord. So I'm going to have the first chord as a C7 with the root of the chord on top. Then I'm going to have a C9 with the 9 on top. Then I'm going to do another C7 with the third on top. Okay. I'm going to do the C11 or a C sus with the 4 on top, or the 11 on top. Do a C9 chord, and that's going to have the 5th on top. Okay. Then I'm going to add the 13 or the 6. It's really the 13 when you have the flat 7 in the chord. We call it 9, 11, and 13. Okay, there's a 13. And then I'm going to have a C7 with the flat 7 on top. I'm going to have a C9 with the root of the chord, the C note on top. I'm going to continue going up the next octave with a C9 chord with a 9 on top. Then a C7 with the third on top. Okay, and then I can raise my pinky and get the 11 on top. Okay, so those... Okay, thank you very much everybody for joining me. Be sure to tune in to jazzguitartoday.com. There's a lot more great writers on there giving out some really good information. And I hope you do well on your journey. And if you have any questions, check me out at billhartmusic.com, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you. Have a good day.